realities of coalition politics almost immediately, so much that they caught us without expecting, because we took weeks to form the GNU government. It was back and forth, not as smooth as the transition would have been otherwise. Were we taken back by all these developments, not just in the political field, but ordinary South Africans? Were they also taken by a surprise?
Yes. Of course not. You know what? My view is that there are two things that give rise to coalition arrangements. The first one is a fragmented political environment. The second one is lack of a majoritarianism. That has created a scope for a coalition arrangement to come into the picture, because one-party dominance is a thing of the past. But the challenge has been that one of the constitutional provisions is that after 14 days of the announcement of the elections, political parties have to form a government, or there must be a government formed. That tells me that those who created the constitution, they never saw it coming that the ANC at some point will be voted out of power, right? I think that was the thinking behind that 14 days, which means that maybe something must be done now in terms of examining that clause. But it looks like, in my opinion, that coalition arrangements are the future. I don't want to make controversial statements, but the question as to whether will the ANC ever bounce back to the helm of power as a dominant force or as a hegemonic force by itself, I think that is everyone's guess. Just to be fair and square, I don't want to be too
putting your head on the block. And just now, because we have elections in 2026, my guest, Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, Sandile Swana is our governance expert, and we're chatting about the post-mortem of the elections where many of us voted in 2024 last year. A year later, a lot has happened. Sandile Swana, let's address the elephant in the room. December 16th, former President Jacob Zuma announces formally the formation of the party that would be third, whilst many would have expected EFF perhaps to maintain that pole position. It was kicked off by the new MK. The numbers on the leaderboard were going up and up, to the amazement of many. And a number of us would have thought that Jacob Zuma was just going to be one of those, perhaps in the 2, 3, 4% at most, and not go beyond that. And later on, we would have forgotten about him. Did he pull another one out of the bag that we did not see coming? Sandile Swana?
I'll be, you should be able to hear me now.
Now I can. Yes, go ahead.
So I think there are some of us who called it that a big percentage of the ANC vote as a voter base is going to go to the MK. It so happened, there are coincidences that happened that on the day, around the time that this announcement was made, I was standing with someone who had been in the Mass Democratic Movement, a leader. In fact, he was the SRC president at Medunsa in the 80s. And he had been so discontented with the ANC, this, that, and the other. When this announcement was made, he said, I'm joining this. Medical doctor. Because some people had this idea that this thing is for uneducated people and fools and this and the other, the MKP. No. Second issue that could have given you an estimate is that Ramaphosa, in every one of these elections that he was winning in ANC conferences, there would still be a minimum of 40% that did not support him. So where was that 40% or more? Where was it going to end up? 3, the strategy of MK, which we later discovered and understood, and it is still in operation till today, is actually to take structures of the ANC. You take a branch, you take a region, and so on. So they take chunks of the ANC. So to me, that tells you that MK did well in the last elections, and I think they're still going to take chunks in the coming months in the local government elections from the ANC. It's a new phenomenon. The DA and the EFF are growing at a normal organic rate. The MKP is growing by taking chunks, stripping. It's a hostile takeover of the ANC, and so on and so forth. So it's a different technique altogether.
Ntsikelelo Breakfast, what is it about
Yes,
MK that magnetized the voters of, I assume, the ANC to it? Were there any specifics other than perhaps the disgruntlement with leadership politics that often take place? But that's a big chunk for that to be just about leadership. Were there issues that really drew people to MK? I mean, you saw the manifesto launch of the MK. I think it was at FNB Stadium, if I'm not mistaken. It was nothing but a preaching session, to be honest. President Zuma at the time read out two things from script. Other than that, he went on to lectures about the history of the ANC, colonialism, and how apartheid played itself out, and literally took us on a history lesson. It was not even a manifesto launch of explaining what they truly stand for. So I'm trying to find out were there pertinent issues that really drew that 14% to the MK at that time, to the demise of the ANC?
Look, first things first, I mean, it's an open secret that MK is a breakaway of the ANC, right? So we're talking about people who understand the ins and outs of the ANC, the do's and don'ts of the ANC, in terms of the maneuverability of the ANC in the political landscape. So my view is that political power in post-colonial states, it comes from two spaces, namely the rural section of the population and also urban centers. Now, when you look at where the ANC has been dealt with the blow in a big way, from my standpoint, it appears as if it was dealt with in a big way in urban centers, because the dominance of the ANC in the rural section of the population is still there, maybe with the exception of this or that municipality. So Msholozi understands how the ANC has outmaneuvered other opposition parties. That's why one of the things that he did, in my view, was to make a direct link between MK and traditional leaders. That was a strategic move, but also embed the party in some urban centers. Then took a strategic advantage of some of the shortcomings of the ANC. One of them is the slow pace of service delivery. But also, it must be borne in mind that on the whole, or in the bigger scheme of things, the personality of Msholozi has played a massive role in terms of helping the party to garner votes. Because whether you like it or not, in my view, I think the party on the whole revolves around the personality of former President Zuma. So those are the sorts of things that have really contributed positively to the party. Whether we like it or not, the party has done very well. I mean, for a new kid on the block to be in number 3 in terms of the lineup of political parties, I think they need to tap themselves on the back for a good job. Well done.
And Mr. Sandile, you spoke about Christmas came too early for a number of parties that would have expected it to come through 20 years down the line. And I completely concur with it. I mean, you're looking at the PA rising and ascending to dizzy heights, so much that their leader became a cabinet minister. What is to be said about the role of small parties. And IFP has been somewhat consistent. I don't know whether they were propelled by the outcomes of various local government elections in the past, that they still have a role despite being scratched off the map by some. The role of small players like the PA, does that say something about an appetite of an ordinary South African voter to give others a chance and maybe experiment with the new?
Yeah, thank you. I think your last comment really, I wouldn't say experiment with the new per se, but I like your comment, the way you approach it, is that in the first place, what I will say is that the politics of the black liberation politics, let's be clear about this, were plural. In other words, you had AZAPO, Black Consciousness Movement, you had PAC, and then you had the ANC. It was never one monolithic thing. I think probably if you are looking at the UDF, just the UDF alone, there would have been more than 600 political, let's call them for the purposes of this discussion, political entities.
Sure.
That were actually moving for the liberation of South Africa. And nobody was concerned to say that these things must be dissolved to form one political party and stuff like that. So people were quite happy and were successful. Actually, one of the most successful things was the UDF in South African politics, but it was so diverse. So when you look at Afrikaner politics, which I have looked at because, from the beginning of the Union in 1910. People actually don't even know that by 1948, the party that won the election was actually a coalition. The number of times that the Afrikaner Party split, you remember even in recent times, Trinich, the split of the Conservative Party and so on. I counted the number of splits and I said, whether we are looking at black politics or white politics, South Africans are into plurality. In other words, it's not one monolithic, continuous thing. It's not like that. Our history is not like that. So, now, and also the architecture of our constitution, when you launch a new party, you get certain bonus points in the allocation of seats and other things and so on and so forth, because our constitution promotes plurality. And lastly, what I will say, and then some people might dispute this, but this is my view. In traditional African society, we didn't form factions or parties like that. If there's a matter in the nation, a lekgotla is called, you go there from your house to the meeting, you hear and you present your view, you are not part of any caucus. So independent thought was there, it was happening, and then if we can't finish the matter today, we'll keep coming back to the meeting until it is finalized. So this thing of people dividing themselves and wanting to say they want one hegemonic party may not even coincide with how we have developed this nation as Africans, the indigenous way of thinking. Let me stop there.
I mean, you're taking us on a history lesson, and it was in 1924 where we experienced the first coalition government at the time, which was headed by Herzog, and then subsequently Smuts joined later on, of course. And that history lesson is very important to trace back the appetite of voters in South Africa, especially after the party at the time, I think if I'm not mistaken, was South African, but which was dominated by a leader who was an internationalist, and the Afrikaner at the time got tired of that outward look. So, and with that, it brings us to this point, Professor Breakfast, about us as voters. The 2024 elections, have they now instilled courage that was missing previously to tamper with a system that probably worked but was broken, to give it a chance to say that actually change is not such a bad thing at all? We often lamented in the media and elsewhere that South Africans were afraid to move towards change. so much that people were saying that we want change, but we keep voting the very same way. The outcomes of that election, what has it done to a psyche of an ordinary voter in South Africa, Professor Breakfast?
Yes. So I think the arrogance of power of the ANC has caught up with them in a big way. My view is that the ANC has not been winning elections because of a good track record of promoting development for the majority. The ANC has been winning elections because of its collective memory, because of its history, and has relied too much on that without catching up with some of the new political dynamics. For instance, there has been a shift on the continent in terms of the voter behavior. My observation is that in many countries now, you see a lot of young people now getting tired of older people who are making excuses for not getting the job done. If you look at, for instance, in Senegal, the guy who's in charge of running a government, I'm sure he's at my age. You look at the guy in Burkina Faso, I presume that he's younger than me. And even, yes, so young, you look at, for instance, the protest, the protest that broke out in Kenya, it was led by young people. So young people have taken it upon themselves, to make a change for the better. Now, coming back to our context, again, there's an interesting phenomenon at SADC level. You saw what had happened next door in Mozambique.
Yes.
I think Frelimo, whether they won the elections or not, it's a matter which is debatable. Again, you saw again what had happened in Namibia. I can bet my bottom dollar SWAPO is not going to win the next elections. SWAPO, I think in Namibia, we are going to have another political arrangement. That's why, for instance, in Zimbabwe, the party that is in charge now, they are worried that liberation movements are shrinking. It's going to be. But so the point I'm making is that a lot of young people now have been eligible to vote, and unfortunately, they vote in relation to the track record of the political parties.
And we saw some bit of changes as far as age is concerned, and your argument is concerned also next door in Botswana with BDP after 58 years at the helm, surrendering to UDC, also a coalition of sorts. That you are referring to. Gentlemen, just after the news headlines, I would like us to touch on the issues such as the electronic voting, whether it is good for democracy, our democracy in South Africa or not. And I would want us to touch on the post-electoral parliament that we witnessed just after those elections. But first, 29 minutes to 11 o'clock. Sfiso Zulu standing by with Eyewitness News headlines. Slightly late. Sorry, Sfiso. What's the latest?
Thanks, Thabo. Good morning. EWN has learned that the main suspect in the Olorato Mungales murder case was in possession of identity documents and numerous cell phones. Police killed him during a shootout this morning at an apartment in Amanzimtoti where he was allegedly hiding. A vehicle he used in the crime in Johannesburg was found with bloodstains at a panel beating workshop in Durban this week. DA leader John Steenhuisen says he stands by everything he said during government's official visit to the White House, including that the EFF should be kept out of power. The remarks yesterday prompted the EFF to call on the National Assembly to condemn Steenhuisen's utterances, saying it sounded as if he was putting out an international hit on its leader, Julius Malema. As the spat denigrated to below-the-belt comments, Steenhuisen hit back, saying the EFF's poor electoral performance in last year's polls indicated that the party is removing itself from the country's political landscape. And US US President Donald Trump says he will address the media alongside Elon Musk today after the billionaire announced that he's exiting the federal government. Yesterday, Musk announced he's quitting his work at the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. His exit comes after he criticized Trump's big, beautiful budget bill, which proposes multi-trillion-dollar tax breaks and a boost to the defense budget. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage, if you are heading towards Springs, coming from the Emalahleni area, there's about a 20-minute delay on the N12 westbound approaching Pansy Road. Otherwise, the rest of Joburg not looking too bad. No serious delays or major accidents have been reported at this hour. Just look out for the faulty traffic lights though. That's in the Sunning Hill area at Witkoppen and Achta. Traffic lights still not working in Alex at Marlborough Drive and Far East Bank, as well as in Rand Park Ridge at Bears Nodia and the N1. If you come across any other traffic issues, please SMS us on 31702. We are also on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Are you a young woman entrepreneur making big moves? Then step into the spotlight with the 2025 Santam Rising Star Awards in association with Fair Lady and True Love. If you're a fearless female, 35 or under, building something brilliant, this is your moment. National recognition, expert mentorship, serious credibility, and 75,000 Rand cash from Santam. Plus incredible prizes. Enter now at womenofthefuture.co.za. Entries close 13 June. Claim your space. Create your legacy.
A bowl of cereal, a glass of orange juice, some flavored yogurt for breakfast. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Now, sign the petition on heala.org. HEALA.org.
Cold weather is the perfect excuse to feed your bed addiction. Invest in a bed from Dial-A-Bed that boosts your health and keeps you snug, comfy and toasty. Choose from a selection of the world's best brands like the Sealy Celebration Queen Set, reduced to only 8,999, or the 40 Winks Active Zone Queen Set, reduced to 11,999. The best bed deals in SA, plus fast delivery. Dial-A-Bed. Sleep for life.
This isn't just a walk, it's a journey through memory, through meaning. The 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane, returns on Sunday, 27 July. Walk from the hallowed grounds of Freedom Park to the southern lawns of the Union Buildings and some of our capital city's most iconic landmarks. Choose from 8 kilometer, 6.7 kilometer in honor of Mandela Month, or 4 kilometer for something lighter. Entry is 360 Rand for adults and 200 Rand for kids under 12. There's no parking at the start or end, so book your park and ride from Joburg or Pretoria when you enter. Sign up on primemediaplus.com before 26 July or WhatsApp the word WALK to 072-702-1702 and receive a link to enter. 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Tshwane. Walk with meaning. Walk with us.
702. Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
Welcome back. My guest, Sandile Swana governance expert, Professor Ntsikelelo, breakfast political analyst, and we are doing our Across the Desk feature. Today we're looking at analyzing 1 year later after the elections, and we are asking a question about the post-mortem of the elections a year later on. Is it what really we were looking for, or is it just our democracy maturing as it ought to? Join us. I've been monopolizing the two gentlemen in the discussion, and so it's your turn to participate. I don't want you to think that I am being a gatekeeper. Probably you have 10,000 questions for them. Feel free to participate on 011-883-0702. That's where you can call in and interact with them, ask questions. You are a voter after all. Why did you vote the way that you did? You are the one who created this upset that we are talking about. How did you vote, and what was on your mind at the time when you really went to cast your vote? And a year later, is this really the manifestation of your intentions when you voted on May 29th, 2024? I'd love to hear from you. Alternatively, send a voice note or a text message to 072 702 1702. Let's speak to you as voters. Participate in the discussion. My guests are ready to hear from you. Let's go straight to you, Mr. Sandile Swana. Let's touch a little bit on what I asked on. The issue of electronic voting in South Africa is a bit of a sensitive one. I don't know if we are a technophobic nation. You'd remember it came up, and I'm risking bringing this to your attention because I know you are highly experienced on these things together with Professor Breakfast. 2007, you'd remember at Polokwane, the ANC's very decisive election. The two gentlemen who are now very senior, one of them from KZN and one who is now Secretary General of that organization, Fikile Mbalula and Sihle Zikalala in 2007 in Limpopo at the conference, they literally stood on top of the tables and the desks that were set up there. They were against the issue of electronic voting. I think Mam Betha Gowe was on stage, if my memory serves me well, and they were adamant that they do not want electronic voting because that's how they were going to be cheated and robbed. So generally, is that our outlook of technology on elections? Many countries are already doing it. We should have started with it last year. We know that the IEC this year attempted to have conversations about it. Is that something feasible for South Africa? Mr. Swana?
Thank you so much. Thabo. First of all, we must, how can I put it, sideline this issue of how, with due respect, of course, how the comrades cheat each other in their own ANC elections. Let's take that out of the way. You will remember that even in Potchefstroom, JB, I think it's called JB Marks now, where the comrades were fiddling with the elections, they're moving people. It was not clear what these people are staying in this ward or that ward, and elections had to be paused, and so on. So I'm trying to highlight the culture of cheating in elections by the comrades themselves. So we must not then allow that to hold the nation to ransom. Coming to the second point, nations like Estonia and many other nations have moved to digital ID long ago. A lot of us entrust our entire money, the money that you have, you handle it on your cell phone digitally. Yes. You are identified with photographs on your banking app. And if that money were to disappear, you are finished. But you are putting all your faith on these little cell phones, and it protects your wealth and your survival, just to even to buy lunch. So we cannot say that there is a technophobia here. There are moral problems elsewhere that we must not make them national problems. So feasibility of a voting system, electronic voting system in South Africa, it is highly feasible. And I can say this, that South Africa has got one of the most advanced computer engineering personnel staff here in the country, in the private sector, in our universities, in the public sector. So we cannot say that electronic voting should be avoided. It is feasible, it is desirable, and it is prudent to do that. And it would make the elections faster to count, and so on and so forth.
Sure. Professor Breakfast, I'll come back to you in a short while. First, let me entertain some calls on 011-883-0702. Khotso, you are in Midrand. Welcome. Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm free. How are you, Khotso?
Good. To your guest. I want them to unpack an issue whereby most of these voters they don't want anything to do with the ANC, let alone to say the ANC liberation movement and anything. What they want to see a party which will resonate with them. Let me give an example. I know more than 10 family members, including extended family members, who don't want to do anything to do with the DA, either the DA, EFF, or the ANC itself. Why? Because none of these three parties have talked about it. They say nothing about the illegal foreigners. In fact, some of them, they propose illegal foreigners, your DA and EFF, to say illegal foreigners are supposed to be here and everything. Those people will never go back, no matter what can come here. But the key issue with the MK party, do you know why they moved into the MK party? It's given the fact to the records of President Jacob Zuma and President Ramaphosa. Pound on pound. We know this is a fact. You can bring it there. Those the good part, your two analysts or scholars, they know that Ramaphosa is the worst thing which has ever happened to this country. But because they know Jacob Zuma managed to deliver with that so-called no school, but it's far better compared. That is why you'll see the MK will rise and rise and rise. And the other aspect is that you have a PA, Patriotic Alliance, which is led by a con man, so-called con man. But it got the votes. Most of these guys I talk about, extended family, they went into the PA. They said, no, let us show you that we know what is to vote, but we don't want to associate with the three which I've mentioned. Because those people, they don't say anything about illegal foreigners in this country. In fact, they promote for them to stay in this country. That is why you say, I'm saying that people, they know that voting is important, but they know who is the worst enemy within the crowd, vis-a-vis, who can at least push part of their hopes and narrative at the end of the day. So I want your scholars to deal with this issue to say why MK party will remain relevant while the ANC is dying. Oh, the last one, which all of these people have talked about me. They said they will never go into the ANC. The ANC which is led by a no school like your with this Vigilant Balloon.
Yeah.
They said they better not vote.
Also, I think we got the gist of what you had to say. Let's give Dr. Ntsikelelo breakfast first, and then I'll come to Sandile Swana to reflect. But that would be after the break. Dr. Breakfast, give it a go, please.
Yes, with regard to political behavior, I think there's a strong nexus. There's a strong nexus between service delivery and voter behavior. And the worst part of it is the fact that there has been a shift now in terms of who is eligible to vote. So you can speak until you are blue in your face. Trust me, if you don't render services, it's either people are not going to vote for you or they will stay away from the polls. I think that is what has happened. I think, there have been changes. I'm not going to say that we have not seen changes since 1994. But I think the ANC could have done better, though. I think it could have done better.
On that nexus issue, if you allow me to press you just a little bit with respect to Professor Breakfast, before we leave the nexus issue. I mean, you're looking at Lichtenberg in Joburg, so much that a company like Clover left because of political reasons, saying that there's no service delivery at all. People lost jobs. I think they had about 300 people losing jobs as a direct departure of Clover in Joburg district at that time. The subsequent local government election, the ANC was back with a bang. And I'm just wondering if the nexus is countrywide, or could it be that it is sporadic and not as consistent as it ought to be?
No, thank you very much, Thabo. You're singling out one area.
Well, Eastern Cape. Let's talk about Eastern Cape. The ANC is back in the Eastern Cape. No coalition whatsoever. The entire province of the Eastern Cape. You and I know the conditions of the Eastern Cape.
Yes.
I don't need to explain that to you because you are there.
Again,
yeah.
No, of course. Sure.
Yeah.
No, of course. No, thanks, Thabo.
Yeah.
Again, Thabo, I say to that, the makeup of the Eastern Cape is quite different because you have a huge section of rural areas.
Yeah.
This was my premise that where the ANC has been dealt with a blow in a big way. It has been in urban centers as opposed to rural areas. Because, in my view, because in rural areas, there is a strong link between traditional leaders and the people. You see, for instance, I want to argue and say traditional leaders are more popular than councillors. So that's why I'm not trying to be everywhere.
Sure.
That's why even when the EFF was campaigning at local government level, they went to the Eastern Cape to speak to, I forgot the king's name, because they know that a king gives a king gives an order. So that's why the ANC has benefited too much from that.
Apologies. I'm not suppressing you. I just need to take a break. Sandile, Swana, I'm also not censoring you. I just need to take a break quickly. I'll come back and allow you to have your worth as well on the issues that we've raised. It's 12 minutes to 11 o'clock.
If you knew the future, you'd be brave. Well, now you can be with Volvo's guaranteed future value. Get your EX30 from 9,999 per month, and after 48 months, return, upgrade, or keep. It's safe to be brave with Volvo. Based on 6.13% interest, 48-month term, 10% deposit, and 52% GFE. Initiation fee of 1,207.50 and monthly service fee is 69 Rand. Total cost of credit is 904,500. Finance officer subject to approval from Volvo Car Finance, a product of Westbank, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider. NCRCP 20. T's and C's apply.
Sunday, 15 June at Narok Sculpture Park in the Cradle of Humankind is the place to celebrate our fathers, grandfathers, stepfathers, father figures, fathers past and fathers to be. Along with the day's entertainment, Epicurean Emporium offers a diverse range of exceptional culinary fare, courtesy of some of the finest food and dessert traders, while Benny's Bar will ensure guests are elegantly hydrated with an array of bubbles, wines and cocktails during the midwinter celebration. Limited tickets are available from nyroxarts.com. Nyrox is a private, not-for-profit foundation to benefit the arts. All income is used to maintain the grounds, the artist residency program, and artist support.
Remember when we were rocking just one bike, dreaming big for our delivery business? Those days. Now we're here with a whole fleet of vans and trucks. That's why it's important to have the right partner in your corner. Of course. We owe to My Way Business Insurance. They've been our go-to for comprehensive cover, protecting our fleet while we deliver excellence. Talk about going from pedal power to horsepower.
Move your business to My Way and get cover for your vans and trucks. Visit myway.co.za for a quote and do business your way. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
Join us.
Let's walk the talk.
This is 702.
702 indeed. Welcome back. We're looking at the issue of the previous election a year later on, the postmortem thereof. 011-883-0702. The text messages: Hi Thabo, great discussion. I voted ANC nationally because of Ramaphosa's leadership. Then provincially I voted Action SA because I trust they can deal with illegal immigrants in the city and can run our city effectively. Then locally I voted EFF because they held their leaders accountable for poor performance. Donald at Ivory Park Extension 2, the home of load reduction and water throttling. Okay, very creative there, Donald. And another message says, Thabo, the current coalition government is a coincidence and not by design. I don't agree with the assertions that voters in South Africa somehow sat somewhere and decided that we should have a GNU, like Ngwashu, giving us that one. 011-883-0702. Voice notes, Abel, I think I've been neglecting one.
Good morning, Thabo, and to your guests. My question is about the EFF. It did not perform well last year. Is this the end of the EFF, or will it ever rise again next year during the local and municipal elections? Thank you very much. Peter Maila Machaba from Letswatla.
Hi, Thabo and the team. With regard to online voting, I'm beg to differ with Professor Breakfast, because you cannot compare a university with the public, because 2/3 of people who are currently voting, they don't know how to use technology. So they will rely on someone to assist them. And do we trust that someone will be assisting them to use technology? If not, then that is a crisis. David.
011-883-0702. Prof Breakfast, I know you're about to leave shortly. Just give us a minute of your reflections and we'll continue with Mr. Sandile Swana. Professor Breakfast? Have we lost him already? It looks like he's not online. He's already gone. Sandile Swana, let's just look into what was raised. I mean, there's a plethora of issues. One that sticks out is that it was just a mere coincidence that South Africans voted the way they did. It was not just generally a pointed sentiment where it was thought wise of the voters to go the ANC route. But subsequent to that, there were other issues of which I'm sure you picked up on.
Yeah. So, if you forget about the emotional parts of the ANC-MK split, because I think it was an emotional thing for many people. If you add up the votes of MKP and the ANC would have been at 54%. If you add the two up, meaning that it would have moved from 57 to 54.
Sure.
Which would have been consistent with its historical decline pattern, but not lose the election actually, but just decline. So these people of the ANC have actually just restructured their divisions into two entities. So I agree with the view that people did not meet somewhere and decide that they are now entering coalition politics, this, that, and the other thing. But the divisions in the ANC, which is a good thing from my perspective, actually redefined the country. And then when the election results were out, they did not want to negotiate and form a coalition government among themselves anyway, the Zuma faction and the Ramaphosa faction. So we need to accept that. Then let's get rid of this one. I think statistically, where the EFF lost the votes, we know where it was, geographically in KZN more specifically. And when you look at the EFF more generally, the damage was not that significant. But I think with the double agents that were operating within the EFF, NKP double agents that were operating within the EFF, it is clear where they were focusing. Similarly, the same MKP double agents did the same devastating damage in KZN to the ANC, and they are going to do the same damage using the same methods in Gauteng. And this is concentrated, geographically concentrated between Gauteng and KZN by and large. That is the difficulty that we are faced with. And the issue of the rural votes, I will not go into it, but many years ago, it was said that eventually the ANC will be a rural party. It's going to lose the urban areas and become a rural party. I think we're headed in that direction. Whether you are talking Limpopo or we are talking the Eastern Cape, I will not delve into that. I think people need to be very careful how the gogos in the villages are using the phones.
Yes.
And you say they are ICT illiterate. I think that issue, we cannot talk about it in that way. We would need to go to other entities like ICASA and other people to tell us that in their measurements, what is the level of illiteracy? The banks can tell us what their experience is and how these things are working. The lotto companies and other people, there's a lot of things that are going on. These gambling companies that are playing all sorts of gambling games and this and the other things. So there's a lot that can be done. And lastly, voter education is essential. The thing that we must accept is that the people of MKP, and I happened to speak to them at the results center there, and so on and so forth. They actually thought that there was going to be a coalition between the EFF, ANC, and MKP. That's what they thought. They didn't see the type of split as we see it today.
Yes.
So let me stop there.
And I think it's a beautiful point to depart from our discussion. It's been absolutely insightful speaking to you, good sir. I'm hoping that we'll have an hour just to dissect all these other issues. And I know that just like me, you feel that we haven't even scratched the surface. There's so much more. The GNU now, where to from here, the dynamics therein as a result of those elections that took place. In short, I just wanted to say thank you so much, Mr. Sandile Swana, for your time and insights here on 702.
Most grateful. Thank you, Thabo. And thank you to 702.
Sandile Swana, governance expert. 2 minutes to 11 o'clock.
It all starts with FNB Private. With secure, easy payments for a hassle-free overseas holiday. Tap, swipe, or go digital with your FNB Visa cards. Earn rewards when using your FNB credit card or global account debit and virtual card. You can even fund your global account on the FNB app while traveling. Make the most of every moment. Unlock invaluable with FNB Private. Help changes everything. FNB, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized FSP and credit provider. TCs, earn rules and limits apply.
Get down to Dis-Chem this Friday 30 May to Sunday 1st June for incredible one weekend only 2+1 cheapest free deals on the widest range of sports supplements, energy drinks and bars from top brands like Biogen, NPL, USN, Primal and many more. Get expert advice from our in-store consultants to help you reach your health and fitness goals. Excludes all advertised products. Only at Dis-Chem. Better health starts here.
Cold weather is the perfect excuse to feed your bed addiction. Invest in a bed from Dial-A-Bed that boosts your health and keeps you snug, comfy and toasty. Choose from a selection of the world's best brands like the Sealy Celebration Queen Set, reduced to only $8,999, or the 40 Winks Active Zone Queen Set, reduced to $11,999. The best bed deals in SA, plus fast delivery. Dial-A-Bed. Sleep for life.
For more about 702,
Go to primemediaplus.com.
And just after the 11 o'clock news bulletin, we'll look at relationship focus, navigating emotional connections outside your relationships. Do you have some connections that are really more interesting, emotional connections with people outside your relationship, so much that you feel so closer to them than you do to your fiancé, your spouse, your husband or your wife? Well, just after 11 o'clock. Speaking of which, time for Eyewitness News.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. EWN has learned that the main suspect in the Olorato Mongales murder case was in possession of identity documents and numerous cell phones. Police killed him during a shootout this morning at an apartment in Amanzimtoti where he was allegedly hiding. A vehicle he used in the crime in Johannesburg was found with blood stains at a panel beating workshop in Durban earlier this week. Mongales' body was discovered in Lombardy West on Monday after she had gone on a date the previous day with a man who picked her up from her home in Athol. Jabulile Mbata reports.
The main suspect in the case was found in KZN with 28 cell phones and a safe at the time he was killed by police. EWN understands that within the safe there were numerous identification documents, including that of women. Investigators are probing to determine whether the IDs can be deemed as trophies of some of his victims. The suspect's parents were taken in for questioning after it emerged that his mother allegedly helped her son evade arrest. Jabulile Mbata, Eyewitness News.
In the Western Cape, a Saldanha Bay mother says she's living in fear that one of her children will be snatched after witnessing the Jocelyn Smith trial. Jocelyn is still missing after disappearing from her Middlepost home in Saldanha Bay in February last year. The missing girl's mother, Kelly Smith, Jacqueline Polis and Stefano van Rijn were handed life sentences yesterday for the child's disappearance. Nabila Abdul says one of her children were almost abducted recently.
This area is not as safe as people think. My kid was basically also abducted almost. There is a lot of paranoia.
DA leader John Steenhuisen says he stands by everything he said during government's official visit to the White House, including that the EFF should be kept out of power. The remarks yesterday prompted the EFF to call on the National Assembly to condemn Steenhuisen's utterances, saying it sounded as if he was putting out an international hit on its leader, Julius Malema. As the spat denigrated to below-the-belt comments, Steenhuisen hit back, saying the EFF's poor electoral performance in last year's polls indicated that the party is removing itself from the country's political landscape. Lindsay Dentlinker has more.
The EFF's Thabo Shole-Mashao has slammed President Cyril Ramaphosa for not calling out John Steenhuisen on his comments made about the EFF during their meeting with President Donald Trump last week.
His words are tantamount to calling on an international inkabi to eliminate political competition.
But in response, Steenhuisen yesterday repeated last week's remarks in Parliament that the EFF should not be allowed to reach the seat of power, calling it a party of chaos and corruption.
I stand absolutely 100% behind everything I said in the White House.
The EFF Sishle then took a potshot at Steenhuisen's romantic past, but Steenhuisen was unmoved.
I've learnt in politics long enough that the only people that worry about what goes on in other people's bedrooms have nothing going on in their own.
The EFF says the US has a history of interfering in the elections of foreign nations, and Steenhuisen has opened the door to the same in South Africa. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And US President Donald Trump says he will address the media alongside Elon Musk today after the billionaire announced that he's exiting the federal government. Yesterday, Musk announced he's quitting his work at the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. His exit comes after he criticized Trump's big, beautiful budget bill, which proposes multi-trillion-dollar tax breaks and a boost to the defense budget. The SpaceX and Tesla boss recently said that the bill will increase the federal deficit and that it undermines the work being done by the department he was leading. Gold is trading at $3,395.17 an ounce. The rand is at 17.83 to the dollar, 24.03 to the pound, 20.24 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $63.84 a barrel.
Well, at this stage in Ekurhuleni, you can expect about a 30-minute delay coming from Emalahleni Witbank area heading towards Springs. This is on the N12 westbound approaching Pansy. There's also slow-moving traffic leaving the Joburg CBD. That's on the M2 westbound between the Crown Interchange and Nazareth Road. And also look out for those faulty traffic lights in the Midrand area, Old Pretoria Road and Ellendale.
A fine Friday in store for Gauteng today. The temperatures will peak at highs between 22 and 24 degrees. The top story this hour, EWN has learnt that the main suspects in the Olorato Mongales murder case was in possession of identity documents and numerous cell phones.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
Walk through history, walk with it. Sunday, 27 July, 7:02 Walk the Talk. Hosted by Freedom Park in the city of Swana. More on primemediaplus.com.
7:02
Live
on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM. Let's walk the talk.
Six minutes after 11 o'clock. Thanks very much for sticking around with us. You're on 702, your station of choice, obviously, the headquarters of talk. And we are excited to have you with us. In the past hour, we had a chat about analyzing the elections 1 year later, 2024, remarkable elections that really shook up the landscape, political landscape in South Africa. You know, the ANC just got over 40%. MK got through with almost 15%. DA 21, just over 21%. EFF came forth and it had expected to supersede the DA, but things went the other way around. My guest, Sandile Swana, governance expert, and Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast threshed out many of those issues, not all. I had wanted the discussion to go on for 2 more hours. Sadly, time is always our enemy. But thank you so much for your participation. Continue to do so in this segment between 11 and 12. And in this one, the questions are personal, up close and personal. Politics of the heart, politics of the soul. I'd love to hear from you. Stick around. 7 after 11 on 702.
Relationship issues
Relationship Talk.
on 702.
We all know that relationships, at least intimate relationships, are supposed to be an umbilical cord between two individuals from which there would be a flow of emotions and values and principles, including trust, warmth, love, and all those fuzziness. Of course, there would be disagreements in between, but what happens if you do not share the same connection with your partner as you do with your colleague, your friend, your church mate, or anyone else outside that relationship? So today we thought we'll look at that. I mean, we form bonds either with co-workers, old friends. You can't just form bonds with your lover, right? You do need bonds with other people, because chances are when that person found you, or you found them, or you met, there were other people already in the fray. So though you would have bonds with other people as well. Chances are you've got a best friend from the opposite sex or the same sex. It doesn't matter. It could be that you have bonds with your colleagues or that cousin who's very close to you. But at what point does a deep emotional connection become a threat to your relationship? Where you feel that this bond with my colleague at work, it's too close for comfort. It may put my marriage into jeopardy if not checked, because I go to her for almost every single thing. This person knows everything about me, my cousins, my siblings, my partner at home, my kids. Is it just innocent? Should we leave it as it is and say, hey, listen, people are allowed to bond with whomever they want to bond with? Yeah, they'll come back to you for that relationship, for that intimacy in a relationship, but they can bond with other people. But that relationship outside could just really be a threat to that relationship. When does a meaningful friendship start to feel more like emotional cheating? Quietly, even though you may justify it. It feels like cheating because you share with this person very, very sensitive stuff that probably you don't share with your husband or your wife or your partner or your spouse. But with this person, you're yourself. The walls are down. Is it emotional cheating? Or is it democracy in a relationship? These subtle yet powerful dynamics of emotional intimacy may exist outside your relationship. Have you questioned your partner's friendship or found yourself emotionally drawn to someone else? Has an emotional connection threatened your relationship? Let us know on 011-883-0702, 011-883-0702. Alternatively, send a voice message to 072-702-1702. My guest is relationship coach Tutu Ntlabati Madonsela, and she's sitting right in front of me. Tutu, welcome. Lovely to have you with us.
How are you?
I am free. How are you?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. You're free. I'm good. I can't complain.
That's an interesting one. But I'm glad that you're here and to speak about these very sensitive stuff. It seems simple on the surface, but I think the depth of it really is a crux of what goes wrong in society. So let's kick off, Tutu. Are emotional connections outside your relationship inherently wrong? When you have these deep connections outside your relationship with your spouse, is that wrong?
I think society starts worrying about it if it's with the opposite sex or the sex that you're attracted to. Because I think everyone has emotional connections. There are things, you cannot find everything in a partner, right? And simply because people go through life stages, people evolve. You also go through whatever it is that you're going through. And sometimes your partner's not the best person to be able to understand what you're particularly going through at that moment. Most of the time, as females, we'll share these deep thoughts and some of the things that we wouldn't share with our partners, with our girlfriends. And I think when it is the opposite sex, and someone you could potentially enter a relationship with, that starts becoming a bit questionable, especially to your partner. And I think the main thing with people is that I find it a little bit dangerous if that emotional connection takes away the connection you have with your partner. When now the joys and the moments that you would have shared with your partner are no longer meaningful and they're more meaningful with somebody else. I think that's when you start becoming worried about that emotional connection. And you need to ask yourself, why are you gravitating towards the other person? Sometimes you gravitate because it's an escapism from what's happening in your relationship. And you're not addressing the issues in your relationship. Sometimes you're gravitating towards other people because the reality that your relationship is no longer emotionally fulfilling. And because there's certain structures in place in your relationship, either you have kids, you're married, you've got a business together and so forth, it's just easier to find a substitute than to actually leave that particular relationship. So you need to ask yourself that question as to why are you gravitating towards this particular person and what does it take away from your relationship? Because I think the main thing is that when it starts taking away, when it's not taking away anything from your relationship, and I mean, we can form deep friendships with other people that we're not necessarily attracted to. So, and I don't want to give like a blanket approach type of answer that says that, every time you form a connection with somebody outside the relationship, especially the sex that you might be attracted to, that it means that there's something wrong with your relationship or that particular relationship that you are now entertaining should be forbidden. But what I do say is that you have to ask yourself, how much time are you spending with this person who's not in the relationship with? And to what extent is that taking away the time that you should be spending with your partner?
Forming that bond to start off with, isn't it a gateway to emotional cheating anyway? Because you may just go down the line and spiral out of control without realizing it. So right at the beginning, isn't it important to curb it and draw the boundaries right at the beginning?
I think your question is based on the fact that you assume that everyone reflects and everyone is aware of themselves and understands themselves. I think a lot of people find themselves in the situation, even if it was not their intention. It's a matter of, I work next to this person and we spend so much time together that I find myself connecting to this person, and then 6 months down the line, I realize actually this relationship has taken a form that is much more deeper than I anticipated. I mean, the textbook answer should be, people should be so self-aware that should be able to self-regulate early. But self-regulation comes as a result of self-awareness. And a lot of people are not self-aware. And I think a self-aware person, after a while, especially when now the urge to spend time with the other person outweighs the urge to spend time with your partner, that's when they would stop and ask themselves, okay, what's going on here? But a person who's not self-aware, and self-awareness comes with wisdom, with age. It could be a 25-year-old. And, you're not expecting that degree of self-awareness with a 25-year-old. And a person who's not is probably going to find themselves in that situation.
But precisely because we don't reflect, precisely because we are not self-aware, isn't it dangerous to commence those relationships to start off with because we're not aware? And I mean, if I know that my driving is not that good, why would I be taking a high-performance vehicle in a very wet, dangerous situation? Because I know that my driving is not that good anyway. So that lack of introspection, reflection should be the reason why I don't even initiate any of that.
It's like saying that then, based on your question, then a lot of people should not be starting relationship, even friendships. Because on the basis of saying that you should be self-aware in order to form relationships, right? And that is in a beautiful, ideal world. But as human beings, there's also reasons why people are the way they are, right? And I think what we take it from is that sometimes we lose context as to why people do the things that they do. And there's a lot of people whereby, because of the context that they come from, the journey to self-awareness is much more harder than it is for other people. So people who've been rooted in trauma, things like, for example, you've been inundated and burdened with certain things, like things like poverty taxes the mind. And if you look at a lot of society where there are poor individuals, they usually engage in bad decision making. And then people think, no, but you know what? There are brilliant minds that come out of poverty. We cannot assume that poor people are stupid, right? And it's not necessarily an intellect thing, but it's the fact that because they are inundated with so many decisions that they need to make in a day, it taxes the mind and they end up making poor decisions.
Sure, but that's also not an exclusive preserve of people in a certain economic bracket,
Exactly,
because we
yeah.
also see that across
Yeah.
all brackets, and some may
Yeah.
even argue that the more exposed you are,
the poorer your decisions.
Yeah, definitely, because of exposure and the
Yeah.
Maslow's environmental factors
Yeah.
come into being. That
Yeah.
you travel the world, you see 1,000 people in a
Yeah.
day more than you would the one that you are with.
Yeah.
So that predisposes you to those nefarious elements.
Yeah, so and that's why I talk about context, because for me, and the reason why I come back to this is that, there's a lot of advice on the net. There's a lot of advice. I mean, even this topic itself has been discussed by somebody somewhere, but yet the solutions don't come, and because the advice is not rooted on why people do the things they do and why people behave the way they behave.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to address something, you first have to understand why people make the decisions that they make.
Sure.
To what degree of consciousness do they make that decision? And I think circling back to your question where you are saying that should a person who's not self-aware even engage in such a relationship?
Yeah.
It's a matter of, it's not a yes or no answer, because of the fact that if context is as such that it doesn't allow the person to actualize the way we desire them to, most likely they're going to make decisions without being conscious of it.
Perhaps not how we desire them to, but how that would be appropriate in the context of their relationship, because there would be, I assume, relationships that would survive all of that and make a comeback. But if yours is weaker and you're still connecting with Thabo every
Yes.
other day, and your husband and your relationship with your husband is something else, clearly you're putting it to a risk. Let's take a quick break. I want us to be practical when we come back.
Yes.
And I want us to answer the question, could it be that is the reason why teachers date teachers mostly? Why Metro Police cops date other and marry other Metro cops mainly? It's not prevalent in the media space, by the way, where we work.
Are you sure?
Where we work.
Are you sure?
It's not a pronouncement on Prime Media or any other radio station in the country. 19 minutes after 11 o'clock.
John Perlman. Weekday afternoons.
3 to 6.
What do you make of what Rand Water is about to bark on? Is this a step in the right direction, a case of no pain, no gain? Or does this point to problems that ought to have been solved before, which perhaps suggests that ongoing maintenance is not what it should be?
No, I think this is the correct thing that Rand Water needed to do. I think that maintenance is always important, and that's what we've been saying. We need to have that kind of maintenance. When they see these kind of maintenance announcements, they think that after this, everything's going to be fine.
John Perlman.
3 to 6 on 702.
Don't let colds and flu slow you down. Adcock Ingram Winter Warriors is here. Your trusted defense against colds and flu symptoms. Be prepared for everything winter throws your way. Fight the pain and fever with Panado or Compro. Relieve your sore throat and coughs with Cepacol. And guard your immune system and gut with Gummy Bites and Probiflora. Adcock Ingram Winter Warriors. Your defense starts here. Ask your pharmacist about Adcock Ingram Winter Warriors.
Do you have the pace to ace the race? The 3 million rand race. It's the one and only Spinner Zonke jackpot race, and it's exclusive to Hollywood Bets. Feel the heat from the hottest slots as you seek to spin your way to fabulous fortunes and precious prizes. A thrilling 3 million rand is up for grabs every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday when you hunt for hidden treasures and spin for big wins. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bet supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp HELP to 076 675 0710.
Ah, Shane, do you have a sore throat? The Analysts range of lozenges offers 2 options. At the first signs of an irritated, scratchy throat, use Analysts lozenges for dual-action, soothing relief. But for a painful, inflamed throat, use Analysts C lozenges for triple-action, pain relief. Analysts, SA's #1 choice for a sore mouth and throat. Andelex lozenges are available at all leading pharmacies and supermarkets.
Just Andelex it.
Every thriving business starts the same way with someone who dares to dream.
If that's you, 702 and Standard Bank's MyMobiz business account want to back your next bold move.
Every week we'll spotlight 4 of Gauteng's boldest entrepreneurs and give them a chance to win 25,000 Rand to boost their business.
And if you already bank smart with a Standard Bank business account, that becomes 50,000 Rand. To enter, hit primemediaplus.com
and tell us your growth aspiration and how a cash injection could unlock your next level of success.
This week, tune in to 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. to hear if your business is in the running. It's time to rise and thrive with Standard Bank's MyMobiz business account.
TCs and more at primemediaplus.com.
Relationship issues?
Relationship talk.
On 702.
22 minutes after 11 o'clock, you're on 702 Relationship Focus. It is. Tuntlabati Madonsela is relationship coach, and she's my guest. We are exploring the phenomenon of emotional connection outside your intimate relationship, outside your bond with your spouse, your partner, your wife, your husband. Do you have a close proximity emotionally with someone else where it starts to feel like cheating? Isn't that a threat to your relationship? What do? We're human beings. Sometimes you're lured into it. You didn't intentionally kick off this thing to be where you are. It could be that you started joking off at work nicely and you ended up so closely. You asked about their kids, they shared, and there was so much in common. The conversation flowed next day. 2 years later, they know all your secrets, you know all theirs, and somehow it's not as it is at home. What do? I'd love to hear from you. Remember, you can always remain anonymous. Ne? It could be that you are a pillow or a crutch to someone who's going through that and you want to share with us. Feel free to do so. Erase your name and then share with us. 011-883-0702. It could be that you are brave enough to speak about it because it happened in your previous relationship or it doesn't threaten your current situation. Most welcome to send your voice note to 072-702-1702. Speaking of voice notes, Abel, I've been neglecting some.
Yes, hello, Thabo, Tyron Randburg. 100%, my friend. That's exactly what the door you're opening. You're opening the potential door to actually cheat. So don't do it. We are sinners by nature, and therefore, if we open doors that we're going to fall in or potentially fall in, it's not a good idea. So I totally agree with you, Thabo. Stay away.
We are fallible beings. Fallible beings.
Clearly. I think during the break we spoke about, and I'm going to this word that you use about somebody being an emotional clutch, right? And I discourage people to do that. First thing, I think no one should wound bond, even in platonic relationships. I don't think people should base relationships on the fact that I always say I never make friendships with people in their low or in my low. Because when I have recovered as a person, I'm no longer going to vibrate with these people, and it will be very difficult to get rid of these people.
Oh,
right?
My goodness.
And I think I discourage people to form friendships or any sort of relationship based on the fact that you are coming through for a person or the person is coming through for you at your particular low. And especially females. And simply because, there's a Kanye West line that, you go through hard times with him and then he leaves you for a white girl. And basically, what it's saying is that when a person is the worst version of themselves, they usually attract people who are similar to them and surround themselves with people that they can wound bond with. And when they become the best version of themselves, you are the very thing that they no longer want to be associated with. And I find that, especially in this work husband, wife, work wife thing, a lot of females end up being the losers in all of this. Yeah. And the reason why they lose out in all of this is simply because of the fact that usually those people come together because there's a void in their lives.
Yeah.
And what happens is that you deviate their attention from home, and smart wives know once the attention is deviated from home, there are things that they can do in order to improve the marriage. But there's not a lot of pressure on them.
Yes.
And when the relationship is back on track,
yeah,
then you become the problem in that particular relationship. and you feel like you're investing in a friendship and you feel used at the end because this person has particularly moved on. So for me, the basis of why this emotional connection is happening, I think people need to question themselves. And because if you don't question yourself, there's nothing as worse as being heartbroken outside and you can't tell your wife about it. Or you can't tell your husband about it. But this person can see something is not right.
Yeah.
And it becomes a little bit difficult.
Allow me to read this text very quickly, Dudu. But before I do, for purposes of context, because we work in this environment, there's nothing wrong with dating a white girl.
No, there's nothing.
Nothing. Not that I have, but I'm just saying there's nothing wrong with dating a white. But all in jest. I think all in jest, right? So let's go to your text messages. This one says, morning emotionally indefinitely is the start of an affair. I fell in love with a colleague due to that, and we did get intimate. We almost ruined our marriages. This comes from Anonymous. How quickly can things spiral out of control, especially if the two of you do not have high quality emotional breaks?
Depends on how big is the void. The bigger the void, the more likely you're going to want to look for that in somebody else, and the more likely you're more likely to hang on to
The
another
void
person.
between who?
Between the partner, so husband and wife. So if, let's say, for example, I decide that there's a colleague at work that I'm forming an emotional connection with, but I'm unhappy at home, and there's this particular void that I need the other person to fill. You know, there's a guy called Robert Greene, and he talks about the art of seduction in his book, In the Art of Seduction. He says the most effective way to seduce a person is to be able to find the void. And basically he says we walk around with an unmet need. And if you can understand where that unmet need resides in a person, it's much more easier to be able to emotionally manipulate that particular person. And I think a lot of times, if we're forming connections because of an unmet need, we're more likely to fall for the next person quicker.
We are going to take the news in a short while. This is a very sensitive issue, and I know that it has affected a number of relationships where in many instances guys were really unhappy about ladies having that kind of emotional connection with their male colleagues and male besties out there, and she would insist, I don't know why you're threatened by this guy. Mike is just my friend. We've known each other for years. And you're like, hey, Mike is dangerous. But she insists because there's a certain level of innocence in her heart. We'll touch on that. But for now, it's exactly 11:30. Mbali Dlamini is standing by to give us the very latest on Eyewitness News headlines. Welcome to the show, Mbali. Good morning. What's the latest?
Thanks, Thabo. A very good morning. We begin in KZN, where 2 additional suspects have been arrested for driving the getaway car which helped the main suspect in Olerato Mongale's murder case evade arrest. The 2 men fetched Philangenkosi Makhanya after his mother alerted him that police were looking for him. The men then dropped him off at a house in Amanzimtoti in the south of Durban. This is where police tracked him down, and he was then shot and killed in a shootout this morning. Deputy President Paul Mashatile has reaffirmed his dedication to combating corruption. He says corruption has played a role in the decline of public trust in government. Mashatile made the remarks during a roundtable discussion on improving governance at the Presidential Guest House in Pretoria today. And DA leader John Steenhuisen says he stands by everything he said during government's official visit to the White House. During the visit, Steenhuisen said the EFF should be kept out of power. The remarks prompted the EFF to call on the National Assembly to condemn Steenhuisen's utterances, saying it sounded as if he was putting out an international hit on its leader, Julius Malema. Those are the headlines, this EWN and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at the stage in the city of Ekurhuleni, there's slow-moving traffic. That's leaving Brakpan heading towards Benoni Rangeview Road between Dube and Tom Jones. Also, if you're traveling towards Bedfordview, leaving Edenvale, there's slow-moving traffic on the R24 westbound between Edenvale Road and the Giluli's interchange. Also, traveling towards Rivoli. That's leaving the Joburg CBD in the Selby area. Expect heavy delays on the M2 westbound. That's between the Crown Interchange and Nasrec Road. Also, in Durban Deep Road Report, I see some delays on Randfontein Road between Collett Avenue and Miles Stoker. And finally, if you are in the Protea Glen area heading towards or heading into Soweto, expect heavy delays. This is on the N12 approaching the R558 in the Protea Glen area. If you come across any other traffic issues, please SMS us on 31702. We are also on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
My family's struggling with snotty noses and phlegmy coughs.
Oh no! Have you tried ACC?
ACC 600 is a convenient one-a-day effervescent tablet from 14 years of age, or now also in a no water needed fruity flavored sherbet-like granules that dissolve in your mouth. Ideal for the on-the-go adult. Ask for ACC 600 effervescent or oral powder at your nearest pharmacy to get rid of the snotties and phlegmings. And trust, if it doesn't say ACC, it's not ACC.
Whether you own a startup in Sandton or a spaza shop in Soweto, Standard Bank has the solutions to grow your business. For just R9 per month, our MyMoBiz business account gives you access to free online banking and a team of business experts. Our Simply Blue Pro card machine enables you to accept payments anytime, anywhere. Search Standard Bank MyMoBiz and Simply Blue to amplify the growth of your business today. Standard Bank is an authorized FSB and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Foxfest deals are back. Get a free upgrade to the Polo Vivo Life when you buy a new Polo Vivo and pay 0% deposit. Get more features at no extra cost. Buy it now and only pay 3 months later. Offer valid only through Volkswagen Financial Services. Looking for something sportier? The stylish T-Cross is yours from just 399,900 Rand. These Foxfest deals won't last. Visit your nearest dealer today or visit vw.co.za.
The time to honor our past and step into our shared future as team is here. Corporate hospitality and team entries for this year's 702 Walk the Talk are now open. Bring your colleagues together on Sunday, 27 July to walk through the historic Freedom Park Heritage Site, past national landmarks and finish at the Union Buildings. To book hospitality, email hospitality@raceoffice.co.za. For corporate entries, visit primemediaplus.com. Entries close Friday, 18 July. 702 Walk the Talk, hosted by Freedom Park Heritage Site in the city of Swana, where footsteps become footprints.
Relationship issues
Relationship Talk
on 702.
25 minutes to 12 o'clock. Thanks very much for hanging around with us. We are on Relationship Focus every Friday between 11 and 12. Clement has this feature and it opens our eyes to a number of aspects of relationships. So we're asking, just if you've just joined us, about emotional connections outside your intimate relationship. Does it or can it threaten your marriage or your intimate relationship? Meaning you could be having a work wife or a work husband, or there's someone out there or some Uncle Charlie there who is your bestie. You speak about everything else and you gossip about Thabo or Abel or Clement or someone else. And this guy is very, very close to you. For some reason, you feel so free to be with them. You tell him stuff that you can't tell your husband, you know. He gets it. He just gets it. And then that could be a threat to your relationship. Dudu Ntlabati Madonsela is guiding us, navigating us through those murky waters. Dudu, where do we say this is jealousy and where do we say this is genuine concern, especially from the side of a spouse who is a spectator to
all of
this match?
It's genuine concern when it's impacting your relationship. So now where I feel like I'm competing with the next person for your time, for your attention, for your emotional connection. I think what we have to think about, not jealousy, sorry, it's concern, right? Jealousy is when, remember, we project as human beings, right? So it could be very innocent, but because of the fact that I'm projecting what I'm projecting of what I've seen when I was growing up, maybe my father cheated on my mother with the lady next door, or certain things happened, I could be projecting where there's nothing there. But I think if there is, and because we women can be very, very emotional and we can make decisions or observations based on our emotions and not necessarily what is fact. And my advice is that you should have observed this and then collect data points to say, actually, this is how this relationship has interfered in our marriage. And I think the other genuine concern, especially a lot of women feel it when they start off relationships and this man had a circle of friends, especially females, that he was quite close to. There's a level of respect that you need to grant a person when they're in a relationship, right? In terms of there's certain boundaries now that even if the person has not set those boundaries, but you respect the fact and that this person now is in a relationship. If I used to come to your house and open your fridge because there was no girlfriend and now there's a mama wasekaya and so forth or whatever, I need to respect that this is her space too. And I think in that instance also it becomes a concern when you have voiced your discomfort to your partner and your partner does not take you seriously and reverts to you're either being jealous, you're projecting and so forth and does not sit down to thoroughly understand your concerns. I think that becomes a point of concern because a person who's really into you really wants to keep you happy.
And that's a gist of it, right? And they don't go out of their way to make your life a misery or to make you compete with someone that you don't even see that often, someone that you don't know about, because they realize that then it's a one-way stream wherein you are competing with a ghost and you can never ever win. Let me touch on this text message quickly. I would like you to reflect on it, Dutu, if you will. It says, my husband was never available emotionally to me. He had a female friend that he spent too much time with at work to a point where he was discussing even our menu at home. The friend would drop her kids at my house and later my husband would join her. So I would also throw, it would be so complicated. So I'd also be forced to become a babysitter. Now that we're divorced, I wonder why they're not together.
Let's start with their relationship. Their relationship, she was a wife of convenience. That doesn't sound like a guy who was into her or who was in love with her. Didn't respect her, her territory, didn't respect her emotions. And when you ask in terms of you wonder why they're not married, I actually heard a story where a guy had a wife and then had a side chick. And when the wife found out about the side chick, he left the guy. And the relationship with the side chick then dissolved. And because the wife was the anchor of the system, you know, it was the anchor of this guy. And this guy, you know, he was the best version of himself when there was somebody anchoring that person. And probably that's what is happening is that because you are a wife of convenience and you were the anchor in this whole ecosystem, when the anchor is gone, the guy's a bit lost in terms of who he is without this particular anchor. And and that particular person, she fulfilled the 30% and not necessarily the 70%.
Oh my.
And now that the 70%, which he didn't appreciate, is gone, he can't base his selection of a partner on the 30% that is available.
Interesting stuff. This is really, really folding our sleeves and getting into it.
But you know, there's something you mentioned that was very interesting. And it was around, you know, the best measures of the various sexes are the same sex people. So what do I mean? You'll have male friends and then they'll bring this girl and you're like, red flags. And he sees nothing and he's in love and the other guys are like, hi, you guys talk too much, you know, and stuff like that. Because females know each other. And we know the nonverbal cues that are given off that we can spot the red flags. And I think also what happens with these work husbands, you know, it's the debate that people have that two opposite sexes that can potentially be attracted to each other have a platonic relationship, right? And the whole idea is that females, we can approach a relationship with a male with the naivety that this could be platonic. But there's always an argument that the guy who wants to befriend you is the guy who's sitting on the sidelines. And then, you know, one mistake pazama, and then, you know, he gets his opportunity.
99% of the time.
He gets. And I think that's why the whole idea of a work husband does not necessarily sit well with men, because men know their nature. And, you know, they're assessing it based on their nature, while you have the other person who says, but I'm approaching this from a perspective of a female, and that's not our nature, and hence I do not see the red flags that you're presenting to me.
Yes, and how did we end up together? I was playing the same role.
Exactly.
That's how we ended up together. 011-883-0702. I would like to take your voice notes now, and do call in. And I would want to hear what you think of this. 011-883-0702.
Morning. Yes, interesting conversation. I think for me, the key word here is boundaries. It maybe speaks to what your guest is saying about not going too far in relationships when you're low, because then typically your boundaries are not strong. If your boundaries are strong, you wouldn't confuse a friendship with a deeply intimate relationship and cross the line. Boundaries are very important, and healthy boundaries are very important.
Good morning, Thabo, and your guest. Interesting topic. So I just believe that when you've got a platonic relationships like that one at work, or if you meet a guy or a girl and you are just friends, there is always one party that wants more. Or it's either both parties want more, but there's one party that wants more. And that's one of the risks. The second thing is, between you and your partner, you need to sit down and discuss what red flags are, what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. Because if you don't have those boundaries set, then it's a recipe for disaster, a recipe for complete disaster. Ralph in Boksburg.
Good morning, Thabo. Look, we are all human beings, and before anything takes place or happen or gets into your mind, you are made aware of it psychologically as an individual, to a point where you are also given an opportunity to make a decision whether do you want to entertain what you are feeling about this person or the next person or not. So I agree with those people who say, look, once that actually gets into your system or your mind, just don't go ahead with it. Don't do it, because you allow it to manifest. Then that's when cheating comes. It starts really there by allowing it. So some things, they just have to be stopped even before they begin. Otherwise, the whole marriage will come crumbling down. Thank you, Edward.
Edward is talking about lead us not into temptation.
I love what Edward is saying. First, I love his opening statement, the fact that we are human. And I think the reason why I love that opening statement is because the voice note before, the guy spoke about, it's almost like you create a template in your relationship and you're like, these are boundaries and this is what we think is red flags. And that is nice in an ideal world as a textbook answer, but we are human and we evolve as people. And also to be able to hold your end of the bargain, the other person has to hold the end of the bargain.
Yes.
And most of the time, relationship goes through ebbs and lows, right? And as much as a person could be committed to whatever template you've put in place, but when the lows hit and the other person is not keeping their end of the bargain, the human part, the human component comes in. And I think to also, it was Edward, right, the last guy,
yes,
to his point around being able to self-govern. And that's very, very important, because no one knows how you feel. No one else knows how you feel except you. You're the first person to know and to understand your emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they manifest in behaviors. So even if sometimes you haven't had time to reflect, but now you're engaging in behaviors. I want to call this person more. I want to text this person more. I'm now starting to hide conversations from my husband with this person. You are the person who's aware of that first. You need to have the ability to self-govern. And self-governing means that you have an honest conversation with yourself. You're able to call yourself out. Unfortunately, a lot of people justify their actions.
Yeah.
It's because last week, because he irritated me, this and this and this. And they deflect the responsibility from themselves. And I think the one thing that keeps relationships intact is when the person values the relationship. And there's a lot of people who are in marriages and who are in relationships where they no longer find value in that particular relationship. And then it becomes an issue of it is because of something outside. And it could have been Thabo.
Yes.
It could have been Lisiba. It could have been Matthew. It could have been Mark. It could have been anyone.
It's incidental in the
Yes.
picture.
And it's almost like you can even argue that you went to seek that work husband psychologically in the back of your mind because you wanted to be able to deviate from self-accountability and making big decisions. And I think overall this conversation has less to do with the fact that whether these so-called platonic relationships are right or wrong. I think it has a lot to do with to what extent do we hold ourselves accountable for our lives instead of blaming other people.
Once you find out that your partner has been emotionally cheating, and I have air quotes for those who can see, has been cheating with work wife, work husband, do you forgive or do you understand that emotional cheating? Answer that after the break. 12 minutes to 12.
Time to get avolicious, because they're just so nutritious. From delectable toast to fab salads, everybody loves avos because they're super versatile. Plus, they're high in heart-healthy fats, vitamin K, and biotin, free from cholesterol and sodium, and can form part of a successful energy-controlled diet for weight management. And remember, green skin avos remain green, while dark skin avos turn purple-black when ripe. For avolicious recipes and more info about the South African Avocado Growers Association, visit avocado.co.za.
Take the next step in your professional development. Join Wits Business School Open Day on Saturday, 7 June from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Explore the world-class postgraduate programs and executive short courses. Chat with faculty and alumni and discover how they transform lives and careers. Get all the information and inspiration you need to take your next step at the Wits Business School Open Day on 7 June. Visit wbs.ac.za/events to register now. Wits Business School, sculpting global leaders.
Cold weather is the perfect excuse to feed your bed addiction. Invest in a bed from Dial-A-Bed that boosts your health and keeps you snug, comfy, and toasty. Choose from a selection of the world's best brands, like the Sealy Celebration Queen Set, reduced to only $8,999, or the 40 Winks Active Zone Queen Set, reduced to $11,999. The best bed deals in SA, plus fast delivery. Dial-A-Bed. Sleep for life.
Every thriving business starts the same way with someone who dares to dream.
If that's you, 702 and Standard Bank's MyMobiz business account want to back your next bold move.
Every week we'll spotlight 4 of Gauteng's boldest entrepreneurs and give them a chance to win 25,000 Rand to boost their business.
And if you already bank smart with a Standard Bank business account, that becomes 50,000 Rand. To enter, hit primemediaplus.com
and tell us your growth aspiration and how a cash injection could unlock your next level of success.
This week, tune in to 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. to hear if your business is in the running. It's time to rise and thrive with Standard Bank's MyMobiz business account.
TCs and more at primemediaplus.com.
Relationship issues?
Relationship talk.
On 702.
10 minutes to 12 o'clock. My guest, Dudu Ntlabati Matonsela, relationship coach. And we are looking at emotional connections outside your relationship, outside your intimate relationship or marriage. You connecting with other people outside your spouse's consent. And do you think that it may be a threat somehow to your intimate relationship? 011-883-0702. Here's a voice note.
Thabo, good morning. Thanks for the great show. Thabo, I think there's two things here. One, once you get into a serious relationship, I think you need to set boundaries with your friends of the opposite sex, what they can and cannot do. Maybe there are certain things that you could do with them, go out at night, be called at any time because you didn't have a partner. But now that there is a partner, those boundaries need to be set, because at times, if you don't set them, your friends will continue behaving the same way, only to find that there has been changes in your life, And I think we also must respect the fact that we are opposite sex, we generally will attract one another. And personally, I don't think it's worked for me. I've tried this friendship thing with opposite sex. It never ends well, Tava. I don't want to lie, It never ends well. There will be that time where it just goes off the rails, you know. And the next morning you are both regretting, and it can't be changed, you know. So it's just better not to have very close relationships with friends of the opposite sex.
Yeah. And we've explored that, Dudu. I just want you to touch on another issue. To what extent can that be prevalent in a circle of couples wherein one of the partners is close to one of the members of a different couple? Meaning it could be you and I are dating, and Abel and Cindy are dating, and whoever else is in our circle. There are four of us, four couples in that circle. But for some reason, you as my partner, you become very close to Abel.
Yeah.
Is that does that happen?
So there's a couple of things. There's a theory that says if one of the partners die, the remaining partner is more likely to date one of their friends. Right. Yeah, it's the
really,
yeah, the likelihood is quite high, and the reason why is that we surround ourselves with people with similar values. So your husband's friend probably shares similar values to your husband, and what attracted you to your husband and what you appreciated about this person was the value system that he brought into the relationship. And now you have somebody, and most of the time, sometimes, especially around death, is that first you won't bond together because you've lost somebody that you deeply care about, and you guys can relate to each other based on each other's grief. But on top of that, you are wound bonding with somebody who shares similar values with your partner and probably similar interests with your partner, and actually matches the description of somebody that you might have entered a relationship with based on those qualities, right? And this is the reason why, I always say to a lot of married women, the person who's likely to cheat with your husband is not the slay queen, but actually within his social circle. That's the biggest threat to your relationship. It's not the slay queen. It's somebody that, in when you look at what forms attraction, proximity forms attraction. And when people have proximity, they're more likely to be exposed to the same things in life and similar interests and similar values. And it's easier to form some kind of rapport or some kind of connection with this particular person. And if a person is more likely to cheat, they're more likely to find somebody who shares similar interests and values, and that's more likely to be in their social circle.
Yeah. Sure. Hey, people are naughty out there, man.
It's not
so
naughty.
If you are like, if I pass on for whatever reason, I shudder to think.
Yeah, you must worry more
those
about your
buggers,
friends.
Those
you must
idiots,
worry more about your friends than you worry about the guy
they've
down.
got their eye fixed. Not necessarily,
not necessarily.
But then circumstances are conducive for that to thrive.
Exactly.
Okay, guys, I see you. I see what you're doing. 011-883-0702. Here's a text message. It says, I think emotional connections are interesting when we don't blame or bash our partners about every little things, but about us. I'm trying. Let me read it again.
Of the relationship is based on your interests and not necessarily about each other's partners.
Yeah.
But you're not bringing a full version of yourself. So, for example, if I'm with my female friends, and I'm bringing my entirety into that interaction and with having lunch and so forth, I don't only I speak about my whole life, and my life is a frustration around maybe my partner, or my mom is frustrating me, or this family member is doing so. So it's very difficult. And the thing is, we bond on vulnerability as people. The more vulnerable you can be with a person, the deeper the emotional connection. And at some point, especially if you want the relationship to have meaning and depth, you're more likely to become vulnerable. You're going to be vulnerable about the things that annoy you or are concerning in your particular life. So it'd be interesting to see if people bonded at this level and there wasn't much death, how fulfilling that relationship would be.
We've come to the end of this amazing discussion. Thank you so much, Dudu. But before we say goodbye, how do people reach you on social media and elsewhere who are looking for coaching?
So I go as the peaceful one on social media. I'm a very peaceful person, as you can hear.
I can see.
Radiate peace.
Yeah, yeah. The studio is peaceful. Yeah. So you go on social media
as the peaceful one, and all my details around contacting me, you can get them there on various social medias.
I loved talking to you. And of course, there wasn't any inappropriate emotional attachment. I really appreciate having a chat with you and making time to come to the studio.
Okay, thank you, Thabo. It was great.
Dudu Ntsikelelo, relationship coach. 3 minutes to 12.
My family's struggling with snotty noses and phlegmy coughs.
Oh no! Have you tried ACC?
ACC 600 is a convenient one-a-day effervescent tablet from 14 years of age, or now also in a no water needed fruity flavored sherbet-like granules that dissolve in your mouth. Ideal for the on-the-go adult. Ask for ACC 600 effervescent or oral powder at your nearest pharmacy to get rid of the snotties and flemmings. And trust, if it doesn't say ACC, it's not ACC.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're a sealing and partition company. I like OUTsurance. They have that personal touch. In addition to the great service they give me, they've also saved me and my company 3,266 rand per month. Guys, make that call. It's well worth it.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43503 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Johannesburg Philharmonic Orchestra's Winter Symphony season is sure to warm the hearts of music lovers during the chilly winter months. Concerts take place at the Linda Auditorium on Thursday evenings at 7:30 p.m. from the 5th to the 26th of June. Season and single tickets now available. Visit jpo.co.za.
Coming up
on the Midday Report
with Mandy Wiener.
Between 12 and 1. And she's right here. What's coming up? Good afternoon and happy Friday, Mandy.
Good afternoon. Happy Friday. Very happy it's Friday today. We're going to start the show with an update on that developing story through the morning. The main suspect in the Olerato Mongale murder killed in a police shootout in KZN this morning. We'll also go to Bloemfontein, where the family's been speaking about that. The Higher Education Department is in Parliament about the CETA saga.
Yes.
Concerns about chicken in South Africa. There has been a ban on Brazil imports of poultry. So we'll find out about that one. And it's Friday, Tom.
Sports and good things too. What a fast learner. Goodness me. Such a complicated
line.
line.
Somebody sent you a message on X last week saying, did you just say that you're a fast
I saw that. That's what propelled me to say this again. But I do enjoy the good news because, you know, it's a breath of fresh air.
Absolutely, and that's why we do it every week. I mean, I'd like to do it every day because I think we need light and shade and balance, and you can't just have an overload of negativity. So important for us to also focus on the good news.
I mean, and these are things that we wouldn't have thought of. Things they seem simple but so important.
Yeah, you know the saying, if it bleeds, it leads, but if it's good, it should.
Well, there you go. From a seasoned journalist herself, Mandy Wiener, Midday Report between 12 and 1. Thanks for indulging me with your presence. It's exactly 12 o'clock. Goodbye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. We begin in KZN, where 2 more suspects have been arrested in connection with the murder case of journalist Olerato Mongale. It's alleged the 2 drove the vehicle which helped the main suspect evade arrest. It's believed they fetched Ntsikelelo Makhanya after his mother reportedly tipped him off that police were looking for him. He was then dropped off at a house in Amanzimtoti in the south of Durban, where he was found by police and killed in a shootout. His parents have also been taken in for questioning. Jabulile Mbata has more.
KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi says they were able to, through CCTV footage, track the car Ntsikelelo Makhanya